Hello, this is Eva the Elfpire, and today we're going to be discussing an executive order that Donald Trump decided to sign on August 7th, 2025 that is aimed at guaranteeing fair banking for all Americans. I have seen a lot of YouTubers and commentators, thumbnails and such, basically saying that, oh, Trump has saved the gamers and censorship is defeated and payment processors have to be put in their place. And while this definitely puts payment processors on notice, it doesn't do much more than that. This definitely is a battle that has been won, but I'm going to explain how we're going to win the war here. So, without further ado, we're going to actually go over the fact sheet for this executive order. I'm going to read through it all, and then I'm going to touch on some of the constraints and limitations of an executive order, and mention how if a bill that is worded similarly actually ends up on Donald Trump's desk, this is a great indicator that he's going to sign it into law, which will give it much more teeth and be an actual win to the war for Americans. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, here we go. Fact sheet: President Donald J. Trump guarantees fair banking for all Americans. Prohibiting politicized or unlawful debanking. Today, President Donald J. Trump signed an executive order to ensure that federal regulators do not promote policies and practices that allow financial institutions to deny or restrict services based on political beliefs, religious beliefs, or lawful business activities, ensuring fair access to banking for all Americans. The order directs federal banking regulators to remove reputational risk and other equivalent concepts that enable politicized or unlawful debanking from their guidance examination manuals and other materials. The order instructs the Small Business Administration to require all financial institutions subject to its jurisdiction to make a reasonable effort to reinstate clients and potential clients previously denied services due to unlawful debanking. The order directs the Secretary of Treasury, in consultation with the Assistant to the President for Economic Policy, to develop a comprehensive strategy to further combat politicized or unlawful debanking activities, including potential legislative or regulatory solutions. I've only highlighted this because it's important. The order requires federal banking regulators to review financial institutions for past or current policies, encouraging politicized or unlawful debanking, and take remedial actions including fines or consent decrees. The order further requires federal banking regulators to review supervisory and complaint data for instances of unlawful debanking based on religion and refer such cases to the Attorney General. Alright, so now we have this next part here, addressing unfair banking practices. President Trump believes that no American should be denied access to financial services because of their political or religious beliefs, and that banking decisions must solely be made on the basis of individualized, objective, and risk-based analysis. This order responds to the systemic abuses by financial institutions that undermine free expression and economic opportunity. Individuals and businesses that are debanked cannot hold a bank account, process everyday transactions, or participate fully in our economy. One major banking institution denied ticket payment processing services for a Republican event, reversing the decision only after it received public attention. Federal regulators encourage banks to flag individuals for transactions with companies like Bass Pro Shop or Cabela's, or for using terms like Trump or MAGA in peer-to-peer payments without evidence of criminal activity. President Trump has stated that two major banks even denied his own business. Earlier this year, the Senate Banking Committee held a hearing on this issue, with witnesses sharing their own first-hand experiences of being debanked. Operation Choke Point, a well-documented federal debanking initiative, targeted lawful industries for political reasons. The digital assets industry has also been the target of unfair debanking initiatives. These practices erode public trust in banking institutions and regulators, harm livelihoods, freeze payrolls, and impose significant financial burdens on law-abiding citizens. Upholding economic freedom. President Trump is committed to protecting Americans' constitutional rights and reducing regulatory overreach that stifles American business and individuals. President Trump has expressed that the banks discriminate against many conservatives, including himself. President Trump says the banks discriminate against conservatives, they can discriminate against religion because they're afraid of the radical left. I think the bank regulators are doing a big number of them eggs because they're not allowed to do business with you. And we're going to get those banks when we get in office. We're going to get them. Nobody knows the banking industry better than me, and I'm going to let them take advantage, and I'm not going to let them take advantage of you any longer. They've taken advantage, and what they do to the people in this room, and by the way, millions and millions of others, is a disgrace. We're going to end it. The Trump administration has already ended Operation Choke Point 2.0 once and for all by working to end regulatory efforts that deny banking services to the digital assets industry. So there you have it. That is the fact sheet for the executive order that we're going to be talking about. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to what the limitations of an executive order actually are, what they can and cannot do. For those who don't know, an executive order is basically the president telling federal agencies, here's how we're going to enforce the laws that currently are on the books. It's like giving your team instructions, but you cannot suddenly make new rules to the game, okay? Which means that an executive order cannot be used to create a new law, to supersede an old law, or to direct the courts, etc. It's only really useful within the confines of the executive branch, the federal agencies that are under that branch, and so on and so forth. Now, that being said, the fact that President Donald J. Trump has decided to direct financial regulators into looking into this definitely puts Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, it puts these companies on notice. Now, I do believe that putting these banking institutions, these card and payment processors on notice is definitely winning a battle. But I'm interested in winning the war, and in order to win this war, we're going to need something with a little more teeth than an executive order. So here we have S401. Senate Bill 401, the Fair Access to Banking Act. This was introduced to the Senate floor on February 4th of 2025. We're just going to read over the summary, but I want to bring attention to this bill because if you are an American, you can absolutely contact your representative and tell them to support this bill. Tell them that you support this bill. Because if this passes the Senate and the House of Representatives and it gets on Donald Trump's desk because of his executive order, I am almost guaranteed that he is going to sign it. With that being said, let's go ahead and read the summary. This bill places restrictions on certain banks, credit unions, and payment card networks if they refuse to do business with a person who complies with the law. Restrictions include promoting the use of electronic funds transfer systems and lending programs, termination of an institution's depository insurance, and specified civil penalties. Banks and other specified financial institutions are allowed to deny financial services to a person only if the denial is justified by documented failure of that person to meet quantitative, impartial, risk-based standards established in advance by the institution. This justification may not be based upon reputational risks to the institution, which is right now what companies like MasterCard and PayPal are trying to say. Well, we don't want to have you support this game or have this game on your platform because it's a brand risk if we let someone buy it with our payment processing network, which is absolute bullshit. So, this bill establishes the right for a person to bring a civil action for a violation of the bill. And there you have it. I personally believe that while the executive order is a great indicator of good things to come, honestly, if we want these things to actually get here, we're going to need to contact our representatives. We're going to need to get a bill passed and a law signed. With that being said, I hope you very much like this content. If you do, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell as hard as you possibly can, and we will see you all on the next one.